guys, this is Atari Bot, and today we are working on Chevrolet, not any Chevrolet, square body S-10 Chevrolet, and this one's got the 2.8 liter V6. That's the good one if you ask me. I like a 4.3, don't get me wrong, but these 2.8s, there was something about them. They were rascally. Yeah. They were little tanks. Good little V6s. They go forever. So yeah, today we're going to work on getting that. What we're going to do today is we're going to clean up the engine. See all the oil grime around it and oil leaks. We're going to fix these valve cover leaks. I don't know if this is a result of the compressor leaking. I don't know if you can see the wetness on camera so much. Or if this is a result of the compressor leaking itself. But there are definitely oil leaks. Obviously, at one point I have replaced the I've actually replaced that water pump a couple times. I've actually been in to repair the timing cover as well. But today we're going to replace that timing cover. See, I'd say something's leaking right there, somewhere in there. I don't know. We're going to take it all apart, even the intake plenum, everything. We're going to reseal this engine from the top to the bottom. So yeah, let's go over what we have here. We have, boom, timing cover. It was made in Mexico. Not bad. Filter gaskets. We have the manifold set. I'm basically concerned about getting the intake manifold gaskets, the plenum gasket, side, center, left to right. We've got two valve covers, valve body, 4 outbound mounting. EGR tube, some RTV, anyway, and then timing cover set, which comes with our timing cover seal, water pump, fuel pump mounting seal, weird, new oil pan, new timing cover gasket. All right. First off, you want to make sure the engine's cold. You want to do this on a hot engine. Take this off, take that off, pull this thing off. And then when you get this up a little bit, pull that off. And then you're going to see a line right here in the back. You're going to want to disconnect that, but leave it on the air filter housing. Oh, one other thing. On the inside, there's this clip. You'll have to disconnect that too. And it just kind of slides there and you slide it up. And what that does is it holds on to this, your mass airflow sensor, or your manifold absolute pressure sensor. It just kind of holds it there. It doesn't really measure anything from here, so don't, be flipped out. Oh, it doesn't seal properly. I mean, you do want it to seal good, but it's not the end of the world. Still got to go through the air filter. Don't flip out, people. So, I'll tell you what else I like. These S-10s come with a handy little part storage area. Right there. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, this S-10 needs some love. Needs a little bit of loving. We'll get it there. Oh, I forgot. You also want to disconnect this if you have it. Some people have lost this already. I like that this truck has all the original stuff. It's pretty cool. The next, I'm gonna start taking out this fan, and a lot of this front end stuff we're just gonna take loose and lay over to the side the best we can. We're going to disconnect our battery as well if you haven't already done so. Just because when I move our alternator around, we don't want it to accidentally short. And a lot of them have lost their little rubber piece that goes, that's spooky. It's so close to that ground. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a lot of cleaning, huh? Other than that, though, it ain't that bad. I don't like seeing spark plugs laying up against metal. It's generally not a good thing. Ooh, that's a really bad spot. See right there? You see spots like that, it's probably a good chance that was arcing right there. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Let's look at the back of that wire and just see what it looks like. Maybe. Hard to say. Probably alright. And then when they crisscross like this, that's not usually. They could rub over time and start sparking on each other. But yeah, let's do it. And the reason you want to start with your fan is because your belt is helping you hold it in place. And these bolts will probably come off pretty easily. We're not going to take it all the way off. We're just breaking loose the bolts, basically. We're just getting it loose. Once we get it loose, then we can take our belt off. But don't take these bolts all the way off. Just taking them loose. Just taking them loose. Alright, so now we're going to take off our belt. Now that we've got our fan loose, this is our tensioner right here. If you can see it, just under this pulley here, and kind of under the alternator. But what you're going to do is you're going to take a 15mm and turn it counterclockwise, and then slip the belt off of this top pulley between your air conditioning and your alternator. Now you might get lucky and have one of these belt diagrams here, but if you don't, try to take note of where all these belts go. Remember, and it generally will only go on one way for most vehicles. You can't count on that. Lift it up. Right back there. Now we can take our belt off. Give it a good inspection. Cracks going here. Not looking too terrible though. Stick that in the back. Alright, now it's time to take out our shroud here. And moving this shroud is going to give us a little more space. We're going to take out possibly 3 bolts here. These are all 8mm. And then there's 2 10mm down here. And if you look over here on this side, you're going to see, well, there's supposed to be 2 10mm here and here. And hopefully when we get done, we'll put back another 10mm there. Sometimes your plastic's too badly damaged. But just do your best to get this on, because you do want this fan shroud in place. It helps draw the air through the radiator properly. And you don't want your truck overheating because you didn't do that. like that, you suddenly have a lot more room to work with. And we can easily take the fan out the rest of the way. Getting around these hoses takes some finagling, you know. If you want, you can even take the AC loose if you're worried about flexing this line, you know, because they can be crunchy. It could be old. This isn't that old of a line, so I can flex it a little bit. Yep. Now, probably ought to drain some of your drain your radiator and your oil too, if you haven't already done that. You probably wait on the oil, because I'm going to do the oil pan after this. You have to support the fan a little bit as you unscrew these. Also, in this one, there are lock washers. I don't know if they all have lock washers. I'm going to put the lock washers back though, because they were working good. They seem to be doing their job. I got a little bolt tray here next to me. Make sure you keep all your bolts organized. If you're not sure where things go back, make sure you keep your bolts with your parts. Lay it all out if you need to. If you've been doing this a while, then, you know, hey, throw them all in a pile. I don't care. Do whatever. I'm just showing you. You're going to do it your way. There we go, we got the fan out. And this pulley just slides off. There you go. Next we're going to take this air conditioning out of our way. We're going to get these two 15 millimeters. $15mm there, and there's a 15mm here. And then see that one down there is a 13mm. Just past this duct tip tube here, you can see that 13mm on that bracket. And then there's another. On the other side, from that, another 13mm down here. And that's what will loosen your brackets for that. But then you'll also need to get, that's 13 down below. Yeah. I wonder if a ratchet can get it. Don't be afraid to use a weird tool. Yeah. And then it might just be those three. Let's see. On this thing here, you just spread these a little bit. You can lift it right up. Yeah. And so far we've removed our back bracket. Remove one down here. We'll remove one more. There's a 13 down here, just above the water pump. On this back part here, there's two lower bolts. They're going to run into things, so don't worry about taking these out. You're going to hit this valve cover. And, I mean, if you need to take this out, it's fine, but you don't have to. You can leave this with the bracket and just take out the bolts below. There's one here, There's also one here, right next to it. But there's also one way over here. You can't see really, but it's over here. There's three main bolts here that hold this booger on here. And once you get those off, though, you'll feel it come loose. You'll still need to take out these two top bracket bolts, but it's not that bad. You could use an air ratchet or an impact gun on this, I suppose, if you can get it in there. Don't forget where these bolts go, because they are different lengths. They are all different lengths. This one's obviously been replaced because it has a lot of washers on it. Something's a lot of oil here. A lot of oil here. So that tells me that might have been like a bossed bolt, and we might want to make sure when we go back in there we use some sort of sealer on that. These are 13s that hold the lower parts of that bracket. As you can tell. I should have lowered that part first, loosened this piece first, because I had to kind of hold that. But yeah, the reason I'm taking this one out is because it goes through my AC line. It's kind of gonna have to come out anyway. Yeah, the rest of it, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? So like I said, these two bolts here, I thought at first I had to take them out, but you don't. But yeah, now you can lay this whole thing, if you can. Like that. Well, out of your way anyway. You can move it around as you need to. I don't want to flex these hoses too much, just because these don't want anything to break, that's all. Just going to take off this power steering pump the rest of the way. Which is just these two bolts. This one and this one here. I've already loosened up. They're 13 millimeter. I'm going to take the whole thing apart. We're going to set that to the side. Now on the water pump, I'm going to take out all these bolts here, but you're not going to take them all the way out. You're just going to take them all the way loose, because they're all going to be different sizes and you don't want to mix these up. So you want to take all these bolts loose. Also with these studs, if you're replacing the water pump, in this case we're not going to replace our water pump because it was replaced not long ago. We're just replacing the timing cover gasket behind it. But if you are replacing your water pump while you're here, then you want to remove these studs as well, because most of the time they don't come with these studs. And you could do that with either vice grips, or you could double nut and lock your nuts together and then loosen off the bottom nut and take these out that way too. And also disconnect your hoses, but you want to make sure you've got your coolant drained out as best you can before you do that. Most of your coolant will come out when you undo this hose here, so you know you won't have too much of a mess of things. But no, despite that, when you're done with this job, you're still going to have to do a coolant flush, or you're going to have to do an oil change and refill your coolant. Probably don't have to flush your coolant unless you want it. I believe that part of our oil leak is coming from this intake gasket back here. So we're going to start out by taking off the throttle body, which is done by removing the top bolts up here, which are 10 millimeters. There's at least There's 3 of them there. And you're also going to have to remove your fuel line. And as far as this vacuum line goes, and all the other vacuum lines, for the most part, they can go with it. And you just disconnect it from wherever they're hooked up to, and they'll go with that. There's a few. So if you do have to disconnect something, make sure you mark where it goes or keep track of it in some way. We're going to take this and temporarily just set our air conditioner right there so we can have good access to the top end up here. Of course, just sitting here in the back. Alright, so we get on our 10 millimeters here. There's 3 of them up top here. Holy moly, these are tight. I don't know why they're that tight. You're going to need a 19 and a 16, or a 3/4 and a 5/16. You know, the 19 on that top part, and the 16 is going to go on the line part, your fuel line. That's what you're loosening. Don't hit that sensor. Would not be good. That's your coolant temp sensor, by the way. As far as the throttle cable goes too, some fuel's going to come out of there. You want to check that O-ring too while you're there. There's a little clip back here. You're just going to lift up on the top part of it and slide it back. There it goes. Had to relift the top front one again. Remember where they go. The green and white are on the driver's side, and the blue and red are on the passenger side. You can disconnect those. Slide those around. Unplug what looks to be the throttle position sensor. This one's got a broken snap on it already, so we're just going to gently... It looks like I have to disconnect this. It looks like that's a return line on this side. I thought that was a vacuum line for the brake booster, but that's down below it. So we're going to take that one off too. Again, 19, 16 millimeter. Don't do that. Luckily these are the same size. But yeah, now we can go get it cleaned up. So yeah, these are like 13s. The others are 10s. And there's a 1 16th thing there. We're going to go ahead and do the... I had to take off the coil pack to get the valve cover off. Also going to have to take these rockers off and these push rods in order to get the gaskets out. There's a lot of carbon buildup here. I mean, a lot of carbon buildup. A lot more than I thought there was going to be. To the point to where I didn't get all this on camera because it was just, I had to put the camera down and focus on the work because I'm on a limited time frame with this as well. But yeah, so right now we're going to be cleaning all this. Whatever, I'm going to do our best not to get stuff into things we don't want to get it into, but whatever does get down washes down into the pan, which is coming off, and we're going to replace the entire oil pan gasket as well. The things I'm not going to be replacing, I guess that'd be the easier way of going about explaining things here. We are going to do a tune-up. We replace the cap, rotor, plugs and wires, but we're not going to replace the exhaust manifold gaskets. For one, we're missing a couple studs here already, so at a future date we're talking about maybe putting some long tube headers on here, but for now, yeah, we're just not going to mess with it. The head gaskets aren't leaking or don't seem to be a problem, so yeah, we've got a new power steering unit because the seal on that seemed to be leaking, and that's why everything was getting everything. But the oil leak back here primarily seems to have been coming from the back corner over here. And yeah, so we're gonna get all this cleaned up. I've already got parts soaking. You know, the valve cover gaskets are something nightmarish. Yeah, maybe I'll talk about that, because somebody just either reused the quart gaskets and silicone the crap out of them, and what was, you know, left was just a nightmare to clean out, and they're just like hardened plastic bits. It's pretty nasty, pretty nasty. We're gonna make it pretty again, though. Make it pretty again, boys. It's getting cleaner, or it's getting dirtier, one or the other. Taking all the push rods out, put them in here. Just laid everything out the way it went, put an arrow so I know which way the front is. Some people like to number them out, but whatever. The lifters are getting a lot of trash, and I didn't want to have too much trash all go down there, so what I'll do is I'll do my best to not get it down there and get it up, and then I'll take the lifters out and clean all that individually, and then we'll clean whatever falls into the oil pan and everything. But yeah, it's not a whole lot of fun, but we're getting there. Slowly but surely. This baffle here, this is our lower intake manifold, upside down. But I haven't figured out how to get into this baffle here where all this got piled into. So I may have to like knock off these rivet things, which I'm thinking they were probably aluminum studs that they just kind of spin welded on. I should be able to get them off. Figure out another option to get that reattached. I didn't see any videos out there of anybody else who's been doing it, so I'm just gonna have to wing it. I also got, well, the top end came pretty clean, but you know, getting this EGR stuff cleaned out really good. You know, I believe that's what part of this is. You know, the other part is yeah, you got channels here. I don't know how this all configurates. There's the other EGR port over here. But see, it kind of goes into this baffle thing. Anyway, agitate the fluid a little. Anyway, like just a big brush. And look at this. Loosens it up pretty good. But there was a lot of crap in there. And look at this. Look at this gasket. It's the absolute worst. It's the worst to have to deal with because there's a crevice that runs around here. It's just how they made these valve covers. And there's some other things in here I don't mind washing this way, but that's the way to do it. Here I am with the intake off, and what I've yeah, I kind of cleaned that, now I've gotten it dirty again. But anyway, what I've run into was this baffle thing back here. We have our intake off, and the cleaning was going pretty good. Well, you know, as good as one can expect. Yeah, I know I could have taken more things apart. Maybe I still will. I just haven't. I had tape over some of these things. But yeah. So the problem I ran into was this baffle here. And it's got drilled rivets. Or they either spun weld aluminum pegs into these, is what I'm guessing they did. And what I've done is I've drilled them off and folded up. I'm folding it. I folded it up once, but anyway. And underneath, you can get to this stuff. It's pretty crunchy. But yeah, this was. I don't know how important it is, but I'd like it to be clear because I think there's a passage somewhere. We'll find out. And then what I'll probably do is retap threads into these and just put bolts back through those. And that should be good. Here's our engine, pretty much all prepped and ready to go. I know there's a lot of guys out there that say, "Hey, cut these. It makes it easy." But really, I say to those guys, it's not that hard to adjust these valves. Get the loose ones, you know, that aren't compressing a valve. Take all the play out. That's all you got to do. Pretty easy. Just tighten these nuts up right there. The ones on the rockers. Tighten those nuts up. Right now everything's just sitting in there. I'm going to go in and adjust some of them on top dead center and then keep going around. But actually I'm probably going to do that after I get things back together a little more. But I am going to snug those bolts down, take some of the play out of most of them. At least the ones that are not currently compressed. Cords in the way. There, you see it now? There's an intake. Cleaned up and ready to go. So a lot of people say you can't get this oil pan without removing the engine. I don't think that's the case. Yeah, I've heard you could remove these motor mounts and still not get this oil pan off because of the oil pickup. We're going to lift the engine up with that engine hoist up there. Take out these motor mounts. We're going to lift this up and see if we can pull it off. We can do what nobody else has been able to do. Yeah, we're jacking it up to the sky. There it is. We've taken our engine mount bolts out. I have to reach around the smog pump to get that one. Unless you take this off, it's not too hard, but I just didn't want to. Don't have to. Taking the motor mounts out. And we've put the engine hoist up on our fenders here. We're draining our oil. Anyway, we're going to need the 10mm. You got to take these panels off back here. Or you got to take this this plate off the bell housing. You're going to have to loosen at least the sides of one of these to get the plate out of here. There's a nut there, or there's another 15mm bolt. There should be one on the other side as well. Yeah. Leave it like that. They're out of the way enough for me to get this plate out. It's a little chilly today. I need these gloves. Don't get your wrench if you got a boxed in wrench or closed in wrench, you know what I mean? Make sure you just, if you have to use a wrench, use the open end so you don't get these bolts, you don't get your wrench trapped. I mean, maybe it won't be. Maybe you manage to wiggle things around enough, get the bolt loose enough or something. But see, there's these washers attached to it. So you're not going to get your wrench past that. Alright. Let's get both these 10mm bolts out. There's two more. There's one up here, one over here. It might be probably easier to do with a 1/4 inch ratchet, really. But I had the wrench out. I'm pretty lazy and I don't want to crawl back out from under here. If this exhaust pipe was hot, you'd not be doing this. It's coming out. I just don't like wearing gloves. But I also don't like cold, oily, wet hands. But this just ends up going slower too, like this. That kind of sucks. A lot of things have been slowing this job down. It kind of sucks. I suppose setting up a camera and talking about it's not speeding it up either, but you know. It's good to document these things for future generations to see what's possible, what might be possible or what might not be possible, what will end up breaking something and what you might get lucky doing. That's a lot of what my videos are about. Sometimes I'm doing stuff that nobody else has done. I also have to remove the starter. Yay. Yeah, I'm just going to take out the starter. I'm not even going to unhook it. I did unhook the battery. Yeah, some of these older Chevys had starter shims in them. And if you don't put those shims back in, those exact shims, you can also kind of do a plastic gauge on your starter gear to find out where your lash is, but it's really difficult to do. So I would recommend just, you know, if you do replace your starter, put those exact shims back in if you have shims. A lot of Chevys, you know, around this year prior kind of had those. Yeah, this one's not going to work. We're going to have to get up. We're going to have to upgrade to the half inch. What have I done? Okay. It's the extension too that's like killing my torque too, I guess. And every time you have an extension, you lose torque. Come on out, you nasty bugger. Let's see. This other one. Did shims fall out? Oh, there's our other one. I'm gonna reach over and slide our starter back gently so we lose all our shims on the ground in an orderly manner. If we have shims. What is the deal? What just fell down? You only want to know. Like aggravated. Something fell out of there. Oh, there it goes. I was catching the flywheel. That's our starter. See up there. Take it out the two 15 millimeters. Those are the shims. And as I suspected, they fell out. And here's the starter. And there's that 110 millimeter up there. See, look, where my fingers point right there. And then you'll be able to get that plate out. And then you'll be able to get to those oil pan bolts. So a lot of people say that you can't get this oil pan out while it's in the truck. And I say, if you really work really hard at getting your arm between the oil pan and the engine, and you jack it up on the tranny and using a support bar up there, and I say you can lift this almost to the point to where things are getting closer than you want them to be, and things are going to touch the body. It's going to happen. Get this thing up, get your oil pan down, and take out the 115 millimeter. Look like this. That's holding your oil pump up. And when you do that, you're going to shake your pan around until that falls off, or you just make it fall off, whatever. But let it drop into the pan. Once you get it in the pan, I have to turn the crank some to get the flats around. I think that's what we're running into now. Something. Oh, it's close. It's so close. Oh, it's so close. So close. I'm gonna try to crank the engine up some more, but I don't think I got any more. It's so close. I'm talking like half an inch. Take a moment to look at this and figure it out. It is so close. Like, you can see I might be able to take this dipstick tube out of the way, get this over some more. We're right there. It's right there. It's right there. We're gonna get it, guys. We're gonna get it. Proof. It can be done. We've just pulled an oil pan of a 2.8 Chevy S-10 93 box body, square body, whatever you want to call it. Doing what they said couldn't be done. Look at this. Let me tell you, getting that last half inch is the hard part. You just gotta keep cranking that jack back there. Keep on cranking on your things, and things are gonna get tight back there. They will. You see how? I didn't hear anything crunching though. Just kept pushing it. I know things are touching in places. But it's up there. Getting it, like I said, it's that last half inch clearance. That's the booger. It's the spooky part. And I'll be honest, I'm not happy about how these are sitting. Neither one of these support sides are sitting in a very nice way. So, yeah, I would say, you know, if you do this, try to maybe line things up a little better. But it seems like I'm pulling the engine forward a little bit since I undid the tranny to get a little more upward clearance. I don't know if you could tell by looking at those motor mounts down there. You can kind of see the distance it shifted. We actually shifted forward about an inch or two and up. So that's really kind of the trick to getting this oil pan out without taking the engine. I'll tell you, getting that oil pump out is no fun trick either, because you kind of have to get a socket on that 15mm bolt for the oil pump. It's one bolt, but that one bolt, you can't really get a wrench on it. You certainly can't get a gear wrench on it. You can get an open end on it, kind of, but I mean, you're going to want to break it free with the socket first. And it's a bear to get in there. You know, whatever special tool ratchets you can figure out. I had used a serpentine belt tool to get up in there myself, and whatever you can get in there. So now on, now I got to do is clean this. I dropped that socket in there. Make sure our distributor hex goes back in so that our oil pump turns and pumps. It's not looking that bad. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Yeah. There we go. There it is. A wonderful oil pan. Look at this. It's not perfect right now. It's just in its first stage of cleaning. I'll do 3 stages of cleaning. First stage is a big bucket of soapy water. And not just regular soapy water. I'll put some of this stuff in there at first with some hose water. Put the hose in here, added that, and I put a couple big things of boiling water in here too. So I had nice warm water to wash with till it got cold again. And these little brushes, all this was from the dollar store. All of this. So I don't want to hear any expenses. You know, there shouldn't be an excuse for why you can't clean your parts. I mean, it's cheap enough. A can of freaking carb cleaner costs you $5 at least, which I got too. Which we'll move on to the second stage. You don't need to go with the carb cleaner if you're real tight on money. It just makes it a lot nicer, because what happens is we're going to get a lot of the little residue and stuff that we couldn't get, and get it a little bit better. And then we're going to clean it off with brake cleaner. So like the second stage would be this. It helps us make sure we got all the water out and does a little bit better cleaning. And then our final finish cleaning, we're going to do this. some brake cleaner, and then engine enamel with ceramic. That's so that paint don't peel back off like it did. No, I'm not saying they didn't use engine enamel. It's a possibility, though. I don't know. You know, I don't want this to be painted, so I'm gonna clean all this so it's silver. Preference. One thing is like gaskets and especially that silicone gasket stuff. That stuff doesn't seal as well when it's paint on a painted surface. So you really want bare metal, at least where your gaskets go. That's just my thinking. You could disagree, whatever. I don't care. Do whatever. It's a rubber gasket, so really the paint probably be okay. This is our gasket. This is our gasket that we're going to be putting in there. All one piece. You know, but ordinarily when you do these timing covers, if you're not doing the oil pan, you end up just doing the front sectional piece and replacing it with silicone or something. But yeah, and they make like a repair kit for it, you know, but you don't want to do that. You want to do this. The only problem with doing this is it's a pain in the butt, I will tell you. Is it going to be worth it? I sure hope so. There's our engine. Still got to do some cleaning on that. I still got to get that back gasket out of there. It's still sticking in there. I mean, all I've done so far is take out the two side pieces. If you look, you'll see I still got a piece up in there I got to get out. That shouldn't be too hard. Probably take a screwdriver or whatever to it. Just kind of scrape it out of there. So we've cleaned our oil pan. Painted it. It's beautiful now. Anyway, we put our oil pump in here. We're going to stage the repair here. And we've got this all cleaned up. And so what we're going to do, I can blow through it. Anyway. See how it kind of makes an arrow shape? You want it to point at the back. Cleaning done. Now I'm going to put a dab of silicone in these corners, also under these, but I'm not going to do so until I get this in place and I get this oil pump mounted. It takes that single 15mm bolt, but it sits like right here, so you kind of get under the oil pan some, which we're going to have that space, but it's not so much space that it's going to make it easy. We've cleaned all this up. I don't know how well you can see, but probably better this way. Still have a carburetor I gotta clean up. Painted this thing. Got the oil pan sitting there. I've got these things. Little push-up things. And what they're supposed to do is they thread up into the block in the corners, and you can slide up your oil pan and your gasket and your oil pan, and then tighten up your other bolts, and then remove these, put your bolts back in. like this. Yeah. This is where I chose to put them. This is what they look like. Keep hanging everything. Yeah. That oil pump, man. Putting that oil pump in there. Let's see if I can get a shot. I don't know if I can get this camera in there. Might try though. Oh, we can see in there pretty good. Yeah, that pump back there, that was no fun. That's a good angle for you to look at. For all you who trying to do it yourselves. So we have our oil pan past the tabs now, and I've got some bolts in it. And what you're going to want to do is start putting some in with the ratchet. Now, what you want to do is grab your 1/2 inch impact. These are tiny little 10mm bolts, and you don't want to use the 1/2 inch impact really, and you don't even want to use something like this. You actually just want to use this. If you want to live dangerously, however. Okay. But yeah, we're just going to use this ratchet with the 10mm. And I'm just going to go around gently applying the ratchet wrench force. It's a rubber gasket, so you can pretty much feel where you're snug down. You know, if you won't need anything more than this to tighten it. That's about the torque. Look it up though if you're not sure. You do it that way. There's a torque spec for. Well, I'll put it on the screen if I remember to do it. All right, there you go. Go ahead. Get this one up a little higher. Not going to squish it though. Not going to tighten it. I just want to get them to where they're pretty much touching. Everything's touching evenly across the surfaces. That's all I want. I have a wobble on there, which sometimes lets you get those turns when your bolt's not snug enough to work the ratcheting. Sometimes you just reach up with your fingers too to spin it. If you weren't as close as you thought you were. Did not have that one close at all. It's touching that one. Okay. Now we can take out our plastic things. So I just put them in finger tight. They put little Phillips or flathead edges on them in case you need more of them or something, I guess. Which I might need. I didn't think I put them in that tight. I had gloves on until those gloves got silicone on them, rendering them useless. Because I couldn't get the silicone off. When you get black silicone, I put a little bit of black silicone in the corners back here. That's how that happened.
I couldn't get it all off the gloves. Somehow I got it in places I couldn't see it, and I said, forget it, the gloves are just coming off. They're making a mess. It's not worth it. One day I'll get this thing done screw. I mean, it's turning a half turn at a time. There it goes. Okay, so I do have bolts that are 10mm heads, and they have bigger threads on them. So those are the sneaky ones in the back corners that threw me off. Get extra wobbly because I'm lazy. I'm not worried about torque. So all I want to do is get these up there for right now. Without dropping them, preferably. That's where those boogers went. I dropped one. Maybe because I got silicone back there, I'm going to go ahead, and I've already got these other ones snugged down. I'm going to go ahead and snug these a little bit. And we'll work our way forward. Snugging down our oil pan gasket bolts. But even, you know, you're not going to lose much torque even with these extensions, and you don't need all that much on a rubber gasket. You can always go back and snug these down again. It's easier to go back and snug them again than over tighten them and have a problem that can't be solved by tightening a bolt. Problems like if you really crank down on these too much, you'll bend your oil pan in the spot where the bolt goes down. And as it is hot and stuff, it'll start leaking between those bolt points. Just don't over tighten. These front ones had these little wedges. No, not. There's a stud there. I'm not going to completely snug these front ones down until I get my oil pan or my timing cover set. That way they can kind of squish all together. I'll go back and tighten those. Not really putting a final tightening on any of these, to be honest. We're up Shim Creek now. If you're from South Carolina, you'd know that there was a Shim. Yeah. We're gonna push it up. Gotta take things up a notch. I knew it. I knew that bugger would go in there. And both of those tabs are lined up, so I'm going to take it that both those tabs being lined up means my shims are in the right place. And this is going to tighten up just the right way. I'm not going to tighten this all the way, I'm just running it up. Now I'm going to run this other bolt up. Because I just want to run it up evenly, at least. Shh. Did you hear that?
tightened up properly. I did not disconnect the electrical connections on top. I just hung the starter with a bungee. It's not too much trouble. It's like a 1/2 inch 13mm nut. And a plug, I think. It might be a 10mm or 8mm bolt holding the secondary. There's a primary wire, big thick one, and a smaller wire. That's about it. I gotta put these bars back in here too. It's getting dark. I don't know how much you can see. So we got our starter back in. Now I'm trying to get our motor mounts lined back up. And what you want to be careful with there it is. You want to be careful not to accidentally have that handle come back off on you. There's a nut that usually goes here. It kind of locks into this piece. But I had failed to utilize that. So yeah, that's all. Now, as you may have noticed, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I didn't notice until I had this on the vehicle. That's not good. Go ahead, take a look. Tell me what's different. One of these is a reverse flow pump. A reverse flow timing cover. Or a reverse flow pump or whatever. I didn't even know that was the thing. Apparently they come with a reverse flow. What you're looking at is this part here and this part here. They're on opposite sides, opposite places. This one's on the bottom going to, you know. See it? And the problem is, too, it becomes quite evident when you go to mount this booger. That's about how that lines up. So therefore we've got another timing cover. The whole reason for this is because these aluminum timing covers, after they've been cleaned and grinded some gasket off of them a few hundred times or whatever, especially on a 30-year-old truck that's been running forever, they just wear out. The surfaces don't plane out properly. I get, it's not cracked. May keep it as a spare, but yeah, that's all. It wasn't, if you feel like your surface here isn't perfectly, planed out, you can machine it, I suppose, but I don't know how much more room there really would have been to get that surface planed flat. And not to mention, anywhere it's not planed perfect is where it's going to leak. More than likely, that's where you're going to have a gasket failure. Putting a new one of these on solves that problem because it's been pre-machined. We'll line them up. Now the bad thing is I'd already put a seal in this one.
That's the one that doesn't, that flows the other direction. And the one in the middle is the one I just picked up from Dorman. I actually got it from Parks on Rivers Avenue. They had one left. It was a bit pricey, but it came with all the, came with a new seal. Another, you're gonna probably need the water pump gasket. I'm gonna use the timing cover still I have. I can see what this is. Oh, maybe I better look at that booger. Alright, what you want to do is get your T27 torch. That's right, it's that one bit you use all the time on everything. And you want to put that in like a 3/4 inch drive. Anyway, T27 Torx security Torx bit. It's that one you use all the time. The one you're always like, man, where am I always putting that thing? I'm always losing that or a 10mm. Oh my gosh, that thing is tight. Why? Okay. That one can't look. Why is the other side not one? It's soaked in cleaner. Should I soak it some more? I'm too lazy. No, it did not. Okay, well. This isn't good. I'm gonna go back to the other one. Feels like I should have cut free by now. Beautiful. Now we're going to go ahead and install our seal. gaskets are in great shape now. We'll deal with those later. Okay, so yeah, you got our seal. Make sure you put this side on the going into the block, and this side out, in, out. What I'm doing is I'm just getting it tap started. I'm not going to put it in the whole way with this. It's not a good idea. They make things called seal drivers. They're great. 2x4s, they're great. Make sure you have this on something flat and not, you know, like on some rocks and stuff. You know, I've got, you know, on a driveway, on a blanket, on some cardboard. And if I wanted to go the additional mile, I could have put all that on top of this board. This is fine. Because you want a solid surface below what you're smacking. There you go. Actually, a little bit of a lip there. You can go around with your 2x4 and just, you don't like that. Like, you know, slightly leaning into it. So that should be good. That's beautiful. Now on to the show. I couldn't ask for better still. Yeah, snug these ones down first. Now, if our alignment stud's all lined up, you shouldn't have to worry about any of your bolt holes not lining up because you tightened up some bolt that was supposed to not be tightened yet. Put a new power steering pump on it too. There's a special puller for this. I didn't really go over that because it's almost self-explanatory, but you have to pull the pulley off to get to the bolts behind it. But I had to take this bracket off. I didn't have to change the steering pump. This is the old one. It was just leaking. Sounded a bit tired, so we put a new one on there. But you can just take off the brackets and leave this together as an assembly when you're actually, if you're just doing the timing cover. These are not the funnest valve covers to clean. I'm pretty sure somebody glued the gaskets in. This is after taking a wire wheel to it on the top. But some of it's just easier to chip off as you can than it is to sit there and grind with the wheel. You'll see. You will see. Yeah, I do believe they use some sort of aircraft sealer or something here. in there that well. After all that, just some sort of glue or something was used. Now this wheel here, it won't hurt the valve cover, it's steel, but what you're going to want to do is try to level this back off by taking a board or something small to get up underneath it and tap it down with a hammer and make sure it's nice and smooth and flat. You know, aside from the parts that are supposed to be ridged and bent, you get the idea. You want the mating surface to be smooth and level. Just use wood blocks and a hammer to try to smooth those out as best you can. Benchtop grinder might be better for this, but that's what I have. One battery down, or two batteries down actually. But yeah, time consuming. There they are. Cleaned up. Man, as clean as they'll get. Give them a little fresh paint job. They breathe. Gave them both a kiss. Alright. Now when I'm putting this valve cover gasket on, I'm going to put a little bit of dab here. Now obviously this has been through something where this doesn't quite line up, and that's partly why. So, but because of this surface, it's like that all the way across. You see under there? Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll probably put silicone all the way across this one. Also, one thing I also wanted to mention is these washer things. You'll notice they say top on one side, and the other side say down. And it's because there's a slight bend in it. I don't know if you can see it on camera. And these are supposed to help to apply even pressure around your valve cover to help it seal better. Work late until night. truck's never gonna survive unless it's a Chevy. If it's a Chevy, it'll probably survive.